Hi, today we're going to be installing Linux Mint 20 on an AtomicPi. So let's go ahead and get started. This is going to be Linux Mint 20, not the beta release, but the full release. And we're going to go ahead and get started with this. We have this burned onto a USB, which you can do from Linux prompt just using dd. We're going to go ahead and start Linux Mint 20 Cinnamon 64-bit. No strange options there. Just let it boot by itself or press enter. And the system will go ahead and start right up. Now, I don't have a mouse plugged into this box, and I am using my rollout keyboard as is usual on the AtomicPi. So as this AtomicPi comes up, I will be using this as a server. So I'm using Linux Mint as a server. Not one of the expected uses of it here, but it actually has almost all the utilities that I need to install as a server pre-installed and configured in Linux Mint. So I was kind of impressed by that. So we're going to give it a shot. We're going to see what happens. Okay, there we go. We now have an install Linux Mint prompt here, so we can go through and we can begin the installation process. I'm going to give that a shot, see if I can go ahead and get the install running. If not, from here, I'll plug in a mouse and get it running through there. Okay, here we are at the install screen. So I'm going to go ahead and choose continue on this. And I'm going to see where we are. There we go, continue. Choosing the English keyboard. I'm skipping install multimedia codecs at this point. I'm probably not going to need them. It's going to be a server on an AtomicPi. But there you go. I'm going to skip that codec installation. Codec installation. And to speed this up for anybody who's watching, I am hitting pause on this to allow it to do its thing. There's about a 10-second, let's see, erase disk. Yes, I want to do that. There's about a 10-second delay when you're running through these things, so I don't want you to have to sit there for extra minutes just watching a screen, a little spinning circle in the middle of the screen. Anytime it prompts me, I will go through and bring it back up on the screen for you. So what I just did is I said, yeah, choose your auto partitioning scheme. Go ahead and do that. Erase everything. Install Linux Mint. I didn't do anything special. I didn't say encrypt the drive, establish an LVM, nothing of that sort. Very straightforward on the server side here. So on this, I'm going to go ahead and set this up with a student user. So we're going to do student here. Well, actually, I'll just go ahead and put student, come on, student user. And computer's name. We'll give it something like that. CYBVLT01, username student, and we'll give it a simple password here. We'll try that again. There, got it. Now, as far as login automatically, I have no reason not to, so I'm going to go ahead and choose login automatically. Okay, at this point, it's going to copy a whole lot of files. So once it's done copying the files, which is going pretty fast, and I am installing from a old USB 2.0 Cruiser Blade 8 gig USB drive. So it's actually going really well. Now, the AtomicPi does have a USB 3.0 port on it, so I could put a 3.0 USB into it. But I have OpenBSD 6.7 and FreeBSD 12.1 and Linux Mint 20 over here, all on Cruiser Blades, where I can just pop them into different systems and install things. So there you go. I'm using a 2.0 USB, but it seems to be clipping right along. So nothing has been what I would say painfully sluggish on this system at this point. And this is an AtomicPi, so I'm running a full desktop right now on an AtomicPi, and it's actually usable. So there's no complaint there. It is certainly not as fast as you would find in a 64-core AMD, something of that sort. But you know, it's absolutely usable, and I'm not going to be running an X interface anyway. The X server, I'm going to kill that, so we're not going to be running LightDM. I'm going to kill the graphical interface altogether, and it's just going to be an SSH. You know, you pop into it via SSH on the server side. Okay, we're wrapping up the installation right now. It's been a while, so I'm going to go ahead and go through and try to bring up the uptime to see exactly how long this installation required. How much time it required. So I hit Control-Alt-T, bring up a terminal there, type uptime, 22 minutes. So you can expect somewhere around a 20-minute installation on the AtomicPi for the full-fledged version of Linux Mint 20 Cinnamon 64-bit. So I'm going to flip back over here, and we're going to say, right there, restart now. So we're going to restart. We're going to look at the new installation. I'm going to pull down, see how much RAM we're using with the X server running, and then I'm going to kill the X server and reboot, and we'll see what we get when we do that. Okay, it's asking me to remove the USB and press enter, so I'm going to do that right there and pop my USB back over with the others. Normal boot sequence. We'll see what happens. Okay, so this is the first installation attempt on an AtomicPi with Linux Mint 20. This is the full release, not the beta version, and it is going great. So it's actually working extremely well. I should take a moment and say, caveat there, I would not use this as a desktop system. Well, I would not use this as my production desktop system. I am building this as a server, and Linux Mint had the utilities built in that I needed. I didn't have to remove NetPlan. I didn't have to remove snapd. The abominations that they are, they're already gone, so I don't have to worry about that kind of thing. So I'm able to get a fully functional system with a minimal of effort. Now over here we've got the welcome here, so we got the welcome screen, the first steps. If you want to go through the first steps, you can. We're going to be disabling X, so it doesn't matter. Now if we do want to go into first steps, one of the first steps that I would do is switch over to the traditional desktop, that's the panel menu, and not use the modern panel menu. But once again, we're disabling X, so there's just not a good reason to do that. Alrighty, so let's bring up a terminal now. So I'm going to pop a terminal up on the screen here, and we're going to do I might make this a little bit bigger. Let's do that. I'm going to type free-m, and we're going to see how much RAM we're using, how much RAM we have in total. So we do have about 2 gig in total, and we're using 665 meg of it right now. I'm going to go ahead and Apt-Get Install Ssh, just in case it's not there. Oh. There we go. So we'll go ahead and sudo that. I haven't sudo-s yet. I'm not running a root shell. So a super user do shell. So let's go ahead and grab SSH. Once we grab that, I'll find out what my IP address is, and I'll start remotely accessing this through the terminal. Okay, we have the SSH server, I believe, up and running. So I'm going to check that out, see what our IP address is. And it's actually acknowledging that we have a number of interfaces on there. So let me go ahead and pop up. It sees the wireless. So we're 143. So I'm going to go ahead and log into that, and we'll go on from there. So let's pop on over to a terminal here and log in. Oh, I missed it. I do a capital R there, what I do. All right, try again. Yes. There we go. Okay, now we're on that box that we just created, so I'm going to clear the screen there. We can look at it. I'm going to actually type unixi-f. We can look at the full stats of the machine there. Now, this is not, you know, FM, FRM, XX, or any of those options. It's just a capital F. If you ever want to try it, unixi is an outstanding tool. Do an lsblk so you can see what we have running there as far as our internal storage. And I'm going to go ahead and look at the free RAM again. This is at the reboot. We're now using 688 meg. At this point, I'm going to start making a couple of changes. One of them is I am going to use one of my repurposed Ubuntu scripts to perform the installation tasks. So let me go ahead and get started with that. Oh my goodness, we don't have Vim yet. Let's first get Vim. As far as we can see, the performance is actually pretty good. It's, once again, I'm not using this as a desktop system, but it's just not that bad. I've had a much worse experience with the Raspberry Pi. So let's do a vim install.sh, and let me grab that. There we go. Okay, so what this script does is it goes through and installs a couple of utilities of the system. So we're going to pop in the exvat utility script setup if it's not there, John, some other things like that. And after it's done with that, it's going to make a couple of configuration file changes. It's also going to change our grub so that we have ETH0 instead of ENP0S, whatever it might be. And let's see, what else do we do in here? Oh, the bash prompt. Yes, we're going to get the world's best bash prompt on there. And some stuff of that sort. So let me go ahead and save that. I'm going to chmod that. And run it. Let's see if I typed everything right. I coded a lot of this during the installation, so we'll see if I made a mistake. Okay, what we're seeing right now is that almost every utility that I've tried to install so far is already installed on the system. Like I said, Linux Mint has just gone, they've done such an outstanding job. The team over there has done such an outstanding job of putting the packages in their distribution that you really need to use. So, bravo. Great job, developers over at Linux Mint. Really appreciate that. Okay, this is part of my script where it says, do you want to disable X? Let's see if I put that in there correctly. Yeah, apparently I did. Okay, so there we go. Once again, I'll check the free-m on this. We're going to reboot and see what it looks like after a reboot. So here we are at the AtomicPi BIOS screen. Any second, it should start booting Linux Mint. Great. Once again, we should not have a graphical interface at this point in the event that I type the commands correctly. Okay, there we are. Okay, we don't have a graphical interface. Super. I'm going to go ahead and log in then. So let me pop over here and pop back into the system. Oh, different IP address. All right. So that did work. It went through. It changed the IP address to the 192.168.1.199, as you can see right there. We are running Linux, not BSD or OpenBSD, and there's the date and the time, etc. So everything is there. Let's check the amount of RAM we have, and look at that. We're down from 700 meg to using 157. So with the graphical interface, you're looking at using about 600 something meg of RAM. Without it, we're looking at 157 meg of RAM. Just outstanding on that. And this is running on a Raspberry Pi. If you want to see a couple of settings, we can run a John test, and I'll try to just run it for 1 second a piece, and we'll see kind of what kind of stats we get running John at 1 second a piece. Okay, there you go. So over here, we're getting about 1.2 million characters per second. That's 1.1 right there. We look at 42,000, 41,000, etc. If you want to compare that over, you can look at a Raspberry Pi. You can bring up those configs and check that out, or you can run it against your own system and kind of see where that stands compared to your system. Well, thanks for dropping by. If you have any questions, feel free to post them over. And once again, thanks for visiting my channel.